in high risk, high reward. I think I would lean towards it as David here, though, just because the permafrosts are easier to fit into your curve going forward, especially when you have another 4-drop in hand.
Yeah, it's really nice for David to play that first permafrost on the Impending Doom. That's just a really, really good damage trade for him, where he gets a consistent source of damage to babamavs from Impending Doom. But at the same time, you don't really want to use the other permafrost on the 3/3, and that's your only other option for your turn's power if you're going to play the first permafrost.
Yeah, I could still also see permafrosting the 3/3 as well, but yeah, I would also wait on it just because you can cast it next turn almost certainly anyways. He's opting to go Obelisk here and maybe try and block with his 3/2 and take damage from Impending Doom. It's an interesting line to take, but reasonable. Now babamavs either has to trade his 3/3 with a 3/2 or use Annihilate or just sit. Got all sorts of. He just decides hit with the 5/5, hold up Annihilate, keep on rolling.
The goal here for David is definitely permanent development of the board. He wants to get his board into a better position than babamavs. And if he plays the Sandstorm Titan, that is just a reactive play that's going to probably get Deathstruck and leave him in a very similar situation, making very similar choices next turn. Playing the Obelisk down did prevent 3 damage, which was what he wanted out of it. And then he gets to permafrost next turn and still develop the Titan if he feels like it.
And it got him a spot to find a way to play Obelisk, which can be a tough card to fit into your curve when you're playing mid-range. Interested to see if David swings with this 3/2 before slamming this Titan or opts to be more conservative and hold back. With a Crystallize and Permafrost in hand, it's tempting to just sit. He's hovering over this end turn button. He might be okay with just keeping this board at parity and making babamavs really think about annihilating this. Somehow has the soul read that babamavs has nothing else going on in hand, no other threats. But yeah, David's trying to find anything else to tempt out this potential removal spell from babamavs. Wow, just amazing play.
Yeah, he's being very careful. David's a solid player. He's been around for a really long time and has been like a contender in these tournaments for quite a while. And we're definitely seeing some good play from him here. He's got the 3/2 attacking in. He does decide to permafrost the 3/3 Copper Conduit, which prevents it from getting resurrected, but also means that he's down 1 removal spell that he might be able to otherwise use on other things.
And he saw the pause, so yeah, he's still going to keep playing around these removal spells. There's another Annihilate. So with that, I think babamavs might use an Annihilate here, but he's taking 3 damage a turn right now, although really 4 because of this permafrosted in Doom. But now this thing's a real clock. This I think babamavs is going to Annihilate on David's turn. David did not draw a Backlash. Has 3 main deck though, so babamavs played with fire there. Didn't quite get burned.
Yeah. David's board here is really interesting. He's going to have to play down the Sandstorm Titan, and that's going to get annihilated as well, since babamavs has the second one. So at this point, he really needs to pick up a little bit more. Tyler's Favored really helps since it activates both of those Xenon Obelisks and gives him a very, very powerful blocker.
Yeah, it gives him a 4/6 blocker, so he doesn't even have to play Sandstorm Titan here if he doesn't want to. If he wanted to continue on the strategy of wait until you find one of your 3 Backlashes, which I think is what David was trying to do there, but he opts to just play it out, hope that his opponent didn't have double removal spell, and they did.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to play around the second card of any particular stripe. That Copper Conduit from babamavs is definitely going to be a threat later in the game. He's going to be able to crystallize it this turn and push for 4, but he definitely needs to draw some more cards here. He's a little bit behind.
Yeah, David's got to decide if he even wants to use the Crystallize this turn or try and wait out a little bit longer. Maybe get a little more value out of it of trying to pick off one of babamavs' numerous X-ones or whatever.
Yeah, he's likely to take 9 here, and that makes him very vulnerable to Predator's Instinct Dark Return plays.
Sure.
But
of course, there's nothing
to
Dark Return yet, and because even if he draws Predator's Instinct, nothing's trading. So 2 Impending Dooms out is now a bit more of a clock. Shimmer Pack makes an 8/8, but you can't Shimmer Pack and Crystallize here. But you can shrink your opponent's Copper Conduit and ground their flyers. So
it's not unreasonable. He gets a decent defense. He actually gets to push some damage, and then or does he get to push some damage? If he makes
I
all of
don't-
his stuff 4/4s,
I don't think you
can't
push damage because you just have lethal next turn via Crystallize if they don't have a removal spell and they're top decking.
Yep. So 2 8/8s, crystallize basically everything.
Yeah.
And maybe even leave the Impending Doom just for a little bit of extra damage, but that's a big risk.
Yeah, leaving the flyer is risky. It's not a huge risk, really, because they're not going to have any overwhelm units to like give killer to. But the extra damage from the ping also isn't relevant. So just with the size of your, I think it's just safer to ground it and shrink it.
David's made excellent progress on this board. babamavs can still win the game with a Death Strike. Well, not quite with a Death Strike. He can still push a lot of damage, but now he's actually just dead.
Yeah, this game is now over. The old Shimmer Pack into Crystallize. You know, you might think you have a lot of health when you're at 14, but not when your opponent's got 2 obelisks in play. Backlash shows up a little late to the party, but that's okay. The Shimmer Pack took care of it anyways.
Yeah, we saw some clever, careful play from David there. It didn't end up paying off for him too well. He had to develop the Sandstorm Titan eventually, and he never actually got to develop it into something that wasn't an Annihilate. But yeah, just really played that very well. Got to develop those obelisks, and that was really important for influencing the overall shape of the game. And it turns out those one-of-includes in his deck were very, very effective in this matchup.
Yeah. So, you know, playing one-ofs in a mid-range deck can be a little awkward, but when you think of them as extensions of each other, just especially something where you're playing 4 Temple Scribes, 4 Amber Acolytes, a bunch of Wisdom of the Elders, where you're going through your deck rapidly. Those one-offs show up more often than in your traditional Legion mid-range deck, where you're not playing all of that card filtering. So yeah, they did work there. For sure. Shimmer Pack, even with a board with just 2 units, can go a long way.
David, now going into sides, we haven't taken the Friendly Wisps or the Initiates out yet, and that's going to be an interesting influence on how this game goes. I think there's definitely a strong case for this game swinging either way, depending on who manages to get a Friendly Wisp down and get those 2 draws. And in those particular situations, the Xenon deck is very well favored.
Yeah, I imagine David's going to try and get in his extra Permafrost, his Polymorphs, his Scorpion Wasp. Those are all just very nice removal spells in this matchup, just trying to mess with their own units that are trying to mess with your own units. You know, transform effects and stuff are very powerful. Not sure what you're quite looking into removing. Shimmer Pack did win you the game there. And I suppose moving forward, it can shrink a lot of your opponent's large units, so that's probably going to stick around. Draconis is a little awkward, but it's still a large unit. It's weird that it doesn't quite line up that great against. Actually, it lines up kind of cool against Predatory Carnosaur if you play it right after the Evil Killer. Like, you're going to reliably.
Being a, like, is it a 6/7? It's a 7/6. So it's not quite that good against Predatory Carnosaur, but being as effective as it is at disabling large units, he might want to keep it in here. It definitely works well against the Copper Conduits. Any extra Permafrosts are just really good here because Permafrost is so effective against both Conduit and Impending Doom, as well as cards like Dawnwalker, which the Xenon Killers deck also runs.
Looks like he's looking to bring in some Praxis Displacers, which against mid-range decks is typically nice. Maybe not quite as nice against a deck that's trying to give their own unit killer and stuff, or like Copper Conduit is really awkward against.
He's taking a long, hard look at it.
Yeah, it can still give you some aggressive starts, which is I think he's trying to figure out is who's trying to be the aggressor in this matchup, right? Because both of them are pseudo-aggressive mid-range lists, and it's tough to know. First off, we have no idea who's going to be on the play. So we don't know how much he's going to leverage like an Initiative of the Sands advantage. Yeah, looks like the Displacer got shaved there. All right.
The obelisks are also getting shaved down. I'm not sure I like that play. I think there's like a pretty strong case for those cards making the difference between victory and defeat for David. But
yeah, obelisk is a funny card because it's traditionally mid-range is like, all right, I'm playing a bunch of large units. I don't need them to be any bigger, except when I'm playing against a bunch of large units. And then the difference between having a Sandstorm Titan that's a 5/6 and a 6/7
and a 5/6
is huge. That one point makes all the difference. So
And the other thing is that he has this support structure for these Xenonobelisks. He has Initiates of the Stand. He has Amber Acolytes. And those cards aren't coming out, despite their vulnerabilities to the early game of Vara's Favor and Annihilates and all of that kind of stuff.
And the 4 Scouting Party. I mean, they don't forget about that either. I mean, that card can be good, but if you're planning on getting into a board stall and then you don't have an obelisk, and I think it's awkward. So David luckily drew a Talir's Favor there, so he didn't have to do this awkward get time off of both of his Diplo seals start for this Temple Scribe. So at least gets a little bit of Primal Source in there. babamavs opens on his little Wisp there, has a really nice hand, just a bunch of different tools and that are nice in this.
Yeah, that Wisp is almost important enough to polymorph in my estimation. Like it's basically like if you were backlashing a Wisdom of the Elders, but it still might be worth it.
Yeah, David right now just praying that there's no amulet here and dodges that. Instead gets a Dawnwalker, which is also pretty good here.
Yeah, he can polymorph.
Yeah, he's going to develop his power. That's it. Yeah, I don't think you polymorph the Dawnwalker. You can still trade it off for a turn, and eventually your Surso is going to show up and get in the way of it.
It's the same game as before. Develop the board, get as much stuff out as possible, take a little damage in the process, but you don't expect the Xenon deck to be able to push a lot of damage. There's only the one way that it can do it, which is conduits and predatory, like just overwhelm units and predatory instinct. So as long as you can get control of the board, that's the most important thing. Secure the late game.
babamavs had some interesting lines to take there. He opted to just Vara's Favor, hit with a flyer, and pass. But if he really wanted to activate this Wisp, he could have swung with both units, Dark Returned his Dawnwalker, and his Dawnwalker would have triggered the Wisp. I know he's like in a rush to trigger the Wisp against an Elysian deck. He knows it really can't die except to crystallize. So this, in theory, this Carnosaur is going to show up and trigger it, except he doesn't have a third time source yet. And it looks like now he's going to go for this Dawnwalker.
Yeah, I'm pretty okay with this play. Like in general, having the big Dawnwalker is more important. We know that David does have the polymorph in hand, so actually renewing the Dawnwalker is not that great. But nonetheless, it's a pretty solid play to get those extra 2 cards, and those extra 2 cards do make a lot of difference in a mid-range match.
That Permafrost is a big draw here. It means he can play Surso and a removal spell if he wants, where before it was just going to be Surso, which is very good in this matchup, as we said before, but I think you're pretty happy to Permafrost this Dawnwalker. It might eventually get binned once you find a Crystallize, but if you're finding a Crystallize while developing your board with Sursos, that means you're killing your opponent.
Yeah, I'd almost even play the Obelisk here, but yeah, Surso is definitely a really strong card, and it's just very hard for babamavs to deal with. Depending on how much removal he's got set up in his hand, he needs Death Strikes for it, and that's really about all he's got.
So babamavs opts to decay this Permafrost, which is nice, except this Dawnwalker's not doing anything with the Surso on the table anyways.
Yeah, so I think we're
I don't know how good of a use that was.
Really good reads from David here. Like he's been holding off on that Xenon Obelisk, and now he's going to be pretty well incentivized to play it.
Yeah, and babamavs just uses Carnosaur to eat at least one of the units. And wow, David's got just whatever he wants here. He can either Scouting Party or double up on Sursos. I don't think we're gonna see an Obelisk here. I think you want to save one of those 4s to pair with your Polymorph. You don't really care about the 6/6 on the other end of the table as long as you have Surso.
Yeah, there's a question of whether you want to play defensively here or attack with the Surso, but it's mostly moot. The second Surso definitely allows him to attack with the first one.
Yeah.
The Scouting Party doesn't, but it is a Scouting Party, and that's certainly a good way to win a game with a Xenon Obelisk.
Yeah, the only way your opponent can deal with the Surso is Death Strike. Now, it is post-board, so babamavs has access to the full 4 Death Strikes if he wanted to have access to all 4. It's a little weird bringing in Death Strike against the Scouting Party deck, but that is the beauty of Elysian midrange, right? It makes this awkward tension on your opponent's removal suite. So, yep, he swings with one Surso, gets in with the other. Opts to put the amulet on the Dawnwalker, sure. doesn't really matter.
There is a way to stop the amulet now. David can just
triple block.
triple block, and
Yeah.
at that point he can polymorph the Dawnwalker and get away with quite a bit. But that's
triple blocking kills the Dawnwalker because of the 1/1.
Immediately get rid of the Beast Color's amulet, and there would not be a beast. The Dawnwalker would be gone. I think that's not an unreasonable block, but the main issue there is that he does want to play his Xenon Obelisk and start getting a bunch of damage here.
Right. But looks like he's going the scouting party route anyways. But again, this Surso kind of just is in the way. babamavs has to find another answer to it.
Yeah, if he's got to play a defensive board here, I think I do like that triple block. If he wants to be aggressive and try and push with Obelisk, then yeah, the other block is better.
Yeah, they both have so many options every turn. It's hard to figure out which one is best. There's so many good options.
We have this impending doom coming down. David has access to Praxis Displacer, which gives him a much better developed board. He's trying to find that 8th power, basically. Like, the next 2 power that he draws are going to be really helpful for him because they allow him to play Sandstorm Titan in a 3-drop or any one of his 4-drops in a 3-drop, and then, like, after that he can actually get Obelisk down and get some really huge amounts of damage swing.
Yeah, this is interesting because he's got to decide if he wants to pull the trigger on Polymorph, because Wasp is nice here as well, so you can like hold up both. It feels like you need to address the big flyer somehow. So I imagine you're just gonna poly it here and still just hold up Wasp.
He could also poly the Dawnwalker, since the Dawnwalker is going to be coming back a lot. But it looks like he's going to just go ahead and stick with the impending doom down.
And yep, just hold up Wasp.
Yeah.
Not do a whole lot else.
Surso's holding off the Dawnwalker, so this isn't an awful play. But he does have to be careful.
babamavs just hoping to find another Death Strike at some point so he can get aggressive again.
David, meantime, looking for a Crystallize would be his out.
Crystallize would be pretty good here, but even just just setting up Obelisk, getting Surso a bit bigger. He's got time. His opponent's got 9 Overwhelm in play right now, so still something. And yeah, David's tight on power. He just chooses to play out the Wasp. Although if he drew a power, he'd be able to play any of his 4-drops and Wasp anyways. So
yeah, I like this play just because it allows him to basically like put a little damage onto the board for pushing, and it does set him up for a bunch of other things that are a little bit better for him. The
Obelisk comes.
Yeah. 2/2 Wasp can block the friendly Wisp or push damage on babamavs. It's really dependent on what he prefers. I think leaving the Wasp up definitely prevents babamavs from attacking effectively into him after a Death Strike. He's still going to have a rough block, but he'll have a much better time.
Okay, so here babamavs can set up a killer Dawnwalker if he wants to. Swinging like this into a Surso doesn't seem wise.
Yeah, killer Dawnwalkers are a little bit awful against Surso, but he can pick up some.
David's trying to figure out why this attack is happening. Like, all right, if I block, it takes 2. He's frantically checking the sideboard. There's no rapid shots here. There's nothing like that going on.
I'm not sure.
He just makes the block.
Yeah, there's not that many good things happening here. That does turn into a 2/2. I'm not.
Right.
Does babamavs have a way to finish this?
No.
Okay.
There's no way for him to finish this.
I think he's completely misread the situation.
Yeah, that's only going to do 3 damage. Like, it still has the amulet on it. It's not. Oh, and then Dark Return, but those pigs got transformed. They don't have killer. Yeah,
misplayed. It's not going to work.
As I explained earlier, Surso's really good in this matchup. It is that big of a pain to deal with, especially when you don't quite realize how big of a pain it is to deal with. And
really easy to make that mistake, but yeah, that is one of the big strengths of Surso is its power against killer units.
The pig wizard gets another victim. Displacer will return. Okay, decides to bounce the 5/5. You could have also just bounced your own O2 to get your 8th power here. You would have given up having a 1/3 on the board to make the rest of your board 1 attack larger, but this way your opponent has no good blocks, where before they had 1 good block, I guess.
Yeah, I think babamavs might have had a chance here, but after losing both of his Dawnwalkers, that's definitely going to be game.
Yeah, Cerso is a cruel pig wizard. babamavs suffered at his hand here.
Well, it's feeding time for David's deck. He doesn't go for exact lethal. I'm not sure if he had it. I guess he would have forced 2 blocks, but potentially been open to like.
I don't think David really put too much thought into that turn. He's like, all right, I'm in good shape here no matter what. And
yeah, I don't think there was a way to secure lethal there. So leaving a couple of blockers back is safe. And
so babamavs learned a hard lesson that I'm sure that Cerso is a hell of a card.
Once Cerso is definitely a hell of a card against Predatory Instinct. And that Carnosaur play is one of the ones that I see people make the most often. Or like not Carnosaur, but any sort of killer play against Cerso. Definitely one of the early mistakes that you have to make it once.
Yeah, it might not be as intuitive as you'd hope for. But there you go. Cerso claims another victim.
So that is that game, and no backup matches this time around. So level 13 David will be taking this one 2-0. Very, very smart, really cautious play from David. Good, like, conservative use of his mid-range deck. Answered the killer's deck super well. Just really, like, sideboarded in pretty well, I would say, even. And yeah, I think overall it's cool that he took that home. So.
Yeah, good disciplined play from him, just reading what his opponent's doing, trying to predict what's in their hand, and I think really nailing his predictions, at least from what we saw how he played out the match.
Yeah. All right, so that should be it for us for now. We will be back with round 4 very shortly, guys. We will see you then.